ESPN's Fran Fraschilla with me, David Smoak, 365 Sports. Fran, the Jeremy Roach commitment from Duke was obviously a big deal. But this one here seems to have garnered even more attention because of what Baylor needed. Not that they didn't need Roach, but also what Norchad Omier can bring to the table. Do you get that same feeling?
Yeah, absolutely, Smoke. I jumped off my couch last night when I saw the news. I have seen this young man play. I did a Duke-Miami game a year ago, and he was dominant. And at 6'7", he's very athletic, high motor, very skilled around the basket, improved outside this year, knocking down 24 threes, almost won a game. And it's a great catch for Baylor because, to your point, everything seemed to be set at the other 3 or 4 positions. And, of course, Josh Ojanwan is back, and he's developing into a nice player. But this gives them even more ammunition up front in the post. And it is a great addition, so much so that I think a lot of the prognosticators will likely have Baylor, easily in the top 10, and some of them even in the top 5. He's that good.
Does Omier remind you of anybody you've seen play the game before?
Charles Barkley, but that's a stretch, obviously, because Chuck's one of the all-time great players in basketball history. But for a kid this wide and round, if you will, no offense, he's very athletic. And, again, he plays bigger than 6'7". He's I hate to call him a monster, but he's pretty close. And, again, I think the thing people will love about him at Baylor is he plays with great energy. Seems like a good kid. He's the first Nicaraguan Division I player to come out of that country from Central America. And, of course, he goes to high school in Miami, starts his career at Arkansas State, ends up at Miami with the Hurricanes, and now he's going to play, the last part of his career with the Baylor Bears. So, great get, no question.
When you look at the Jeremy Roach transfer and now Omier and the Scott Drew Kentucky story that ended up with him staying at Baylor, which I think most everyone thought he would, but it got a little dicey, as you know. Could they have had a better offseason knowing that Misi and also, obviously, Jacoby Walter were going to turn pro?
No, I don't think they could have, really. All things considered. They did well, obviously. And I talked to Coach Drew a couple nights ago. I actually asked him any second thoughts about turning down Kentucky. And him, Smokey. He absolutely has no regrets. He's excited, juiced up, I think you will. Now, here's the good news, bad news. They stay in the top 10 and maybe top 5, but there's also 3 other Big 12 teams that have a chance starting the regular season to be in the top 5. When you talk about Houston, Kansas, and Iowa State. So they've kept up with the Joneses, which is a good thing because right now the Joneses are a part of the best basketball league in the country.
What does it say about his coaching tree, which maybe is spread far and wide as anyone now? Jacobs, Mills, Tang, McCaslin, Driscoll, Bill Peterson's moving on, AB now at Kentucky. I mean, it's pretty remarkable what that coaching staff and who they've had. I mean, that isn't, Tim Maloney, who was a huge part of what they did back in the day, he's now retired. But your thoughts about how that has spread throughout the country?
Well, I think it's just an indication of what Scott built starting from day one in 2003. He's always had great people around him. By the way, maybe we'll talk about the new staff because the new staff's pretty darn good too.
Absolutely.
In replacing some very good coaches. But I think it says a lot about the collaboration that Scott allows with his coaching staff. He's obviously had some very good basketball minds around him. They've gone on so far to do some great things, obviously. And now when you look at Tweety Carter moving into a coaching role, not that he wasn't important already, Bill Armstrong, great reputation. Steve Henson, obviously kind of outside the family, but great reputation. And then there'll probably be some other news here in the next couple of days about a homegrown Baylor Bear joining the staff, and that'll be great news too. I guess the beat goes on, I think you could say.
Steve Henson, I was told by somebody in Baylor Athletics, before he moved to UTSA for that time as a head coach, when he was at Oklahoma, was he known as an offensive type mind in the same realm as what Jacobs was coming out of Gonzaga?
Well, I think so. You know, Steve's got a unique background. He's one of the great – I remember Steve as a high school player, star, I believe in McPherson, Kansas, if I'm not mistaken, right in the heart of that state. He's one of the great athletes to ever come out of the state of Kansas. I think a decathlon athlete, in addition to being a great basketball player. And people don't realize Steve played a healthy number of years in the NBA as a 6'1", 6'2" guard at Central Kansas. So, and then of course his coaching career, obviously being with Lon Kruger, then getting head coaching experience down at UTSA. Great human being. My son James played for him at Oklahoma. He'll fit right in. And again, quality human being, great coach, and he's going to be a really nice addition to the staff. Kind of outside the family, if you will, but someone that knows the Big 12 very, very, very well.
Fran, what and how important was it with the Roach decision and that Scott and the staff were able to keep Nunn happy? He's not leaving. Obviously, Langston Love, you just wish he could stay healthy. He's a tremendous player. And obviously, you mentioned the incoming newbies with the Edgecombe, Samota, and also Wright. But how important was it that they kept Nunn?
I think, there were times this year where, Jaden was the best player on the court. Now, they had the kind of team where every night somebody else was the best player on the court. But Jaden, I thought, had a very good season. He's a quality young man. He plays with great energy. He's going to be one of the, upperclassmen next year, along with Langston and Josh that have, Big 12, real Big 12 experience. And, so I think he's going to be very important. The other guys that you mentioned, Jeremy's got great experience, obviously, 4 years at Duke, played in so many big games. And, it's kind of a long shot, but I still think there's a chance that if Jalen Bridges would have come back, that he would give them what Kevin McCullough did for Kansas. I think Jalen improved that much over his couple seasons at Baylor. Now, again, I don't want to get anybody's hopes up, Smoak, because I think if he gets a chance to get drafted, he's probably a second-round pick, he'll probably stay in the draft. But already they're a very, they're already a top 5, top 7 team, and again, a lot of good pieces to work with, and I think it's got to be, pretty exciting if you're a fan of the Bears and you're in Central Texas.
One more thing about Omier. You mentioned all of what he does, and I'm not. At times, it seemed like last year, in the last year or two, they've kind of lacked that dog, that kind of physical presence. Not when you have, my God, when you had what they had to win the national title with Vital and at guards, all the guards. That's one, Davion, etc., Butler, Teague. But do you think he brings a little extra grit that they needed to?
Well, he does, because if you look at the last couple of years, some of the key guys on this team were freshmen, and Keontae, and then certainly this year with Eve and Jacoby. So as good as they are, they're going to be better pros, because their maturity isn't going to hit stride until they get to the NBA, whereas guys like Roach and Omier are guys that are proven commodities already and do bring that dog that you acquire when you play, in a tough league against good competition. And so both of those guys coming, from Miami and Duke with their experience bring that dog that you're talking about. And it's exactly what Mark Vital provided over 5 years. It's what that trio of guards provided. And, you can't blame Baylor for being young and talented the last couple of years, but this gives them, I think, a little bit more of that toughness and maturity that you're talking about.
All right, last thing. You mentioned the Big 12. Obviously, the data, the analytics, all of what they've done, the national title with Baylor and KU back-to-back. Texas Tech knocked on the door a little bit before that. They were really good across the board. You cover them as well as you cover them better than anybody else. But the tournament was a little bit of a disappointment overall. It's hard. Should the tournament and the results of a conference dictate what a conference is or who a conference is?
Well, keep in mind, Smoak, this conference for the 11th time and I think 9th time in 11 years, according to Ken Palm, best conference in college basketball, according to the analytics. I said during the season often that although it was ranked the number one conference in the country, it was a down year in the Big 12 because you had a lot of injuries. Kansas was not their typical number one seed. That changed quickly in the spring. Houston was devastated with injuries. So this was really a product of injuries more than anything. Think about it. If you look at a healthy Houston, a healthy Kansas, there were some other teams with injuries. So, again, no excuses for the league. They put a lot of teams in the tournament. Not everybody got to where they thought they would get. But now, as you start next season, health being a big factor, all of a sudden Iowa State's got a great group back. Houston's got a great group back. It sounds crazy to say this because they lost one of the great players in the last 20 years in the Big 12. I think they're going to be better. Too deep at every spot. They've got a veteran point guard from Oklahoma in Uzan. Baylor all of a sudden has gotten old quickly. Texas Tech's in the middle of a great recruiting class. Watch out for Cincinnati with a lot of key guys back. I can go on and on. Kansas State, Arizona, we haven't talked about, BYU has got a new coach with majority of their guys. So this will be the best league in the country, I think, almost by far next year. But when you get to March, there's a lot of luck involved. And if they have good luck next year, they'll have the possibility of having 2 or 3 number one seeds heading into March.
Thank you, Fran. Always great to have you with your knowledge, experience, and all of the above. Thanks for your time. Fran Fraschilla, ESPN, with us on 365 Sports. It is